Last time on Dragon Ball Z.
So I guess we're just going to see, really how incredible Pure Blood is as a demon level monster. And then we're just going to see how incredible Zombie Man's ability is to regenerate and whatnot. I guarantee that, actually this will be amplified in the manga. Because Zombie Man says that it takes like 3 minutes for him to recover after taking about 200 fatal wounds. So I assume that this will be amplified. Like, his regen might be like, I don't know, a couple seconds possibly. Like, after we see him take a severe wound, it might come back within moments. That's a possibility. That would make him a little too OP. But, he is an S-class hero. All right, let's do it. One Punch Man, Chapter 101. I think this one's just straight up called Zombie Man. And let me just say that this is one of my favorite chapters in the series. Easily. Maybe top 5, maybe top 3. Not sure yet, but this chapter was pretty much flawless. It did everything I wanted it to do. Not to mention, it's showcasing Zombie Man, which is something I've been waiting for so long. And I know you guys who have read the webcomic and whatnot assumed that Amai Mask was going to be next, considering the order of things. I mean, I assumed that too, but I was really hoping that Zombie Man would be next up, and One and Murata delivered with it. And I'm also thinking, like, Zombie Man is my favorite S-class hero now. I mean, come on, man. He was too cool in this chapter. And, you might be calling me fair weather and bandwagon jumping and whatnot. And I know I said Metal Bat was my favorite S-class hero, but man, this just pushed me over the edge with Zombie Man. Until we see, like, more feats from Metal Bat in, like, 5 years. For now, man, Zombie Man, he's just way too cool. But before we get into this, I just want to give a quick shout out to my thumbnail artist, Quiet Hist. If you've noticed for these chapter reviews and some other videos that I've used, I have colored panels on there and they look great. And these are coming from Quiet Hist. She doesn't just color panels, but she's also a very talented artist aside from that. So please check out her Instagram because she certainly deserves all the support she can get. Like I said, she is very talented. So the first thing I want to talk about is how they established what Zombie Man's role in the S-Class is, because he says that, his specialty is being a detective, essentially, like investigating monsters, scouting and spying, all of that stuff. And we see that from him early on in this arc, when we see him tailing that gorilla dude, and then he winds up just tailing Armored Gorilla instead, and he goes to the House of Evolution's takoyaki stand. But I think this is, it's essential information because, everyone before this chapter was like Zombie Man's weak and whatnot. And I already established this in my Zombie Man is much stronger than you thought video, which, lucky for me, I put that out there because it's very apropos to this chapter. But it's just showing us that all of the S-Class heroes have their own individual roles. And while a lot of them are just straight up powerhouses or dragon busters and whatnot, some of them are like intel and reconnaissance style guys. And this is, pretty much Zombie Man's character. He's like a noir detective almost, but he's also somewhat like of a grindhouse character as well. I mean, considering the performance that he put on in this chapter. But also it's showing that, if he needs to, he can get his hands dirty and he can solo high demons. And, I'm just going to assume that Pure Blood is a high demon. So let's get into him because he is extremely powerful, as I assumed he was going to be. I mean, from this point on, all of the main monsters left in the Monster Association are going to be really powerful. We're looking at just like high demons and up from this point. As we saw with Phoenix Man, while he wasn't necessarily a high demon, he became a dragon. And while Pure Blood didn't really follow suit with that, I think this was just showcasing that, like, yeah, he's one of the stronger demons for sure. I mean, he has so many abilities in this chapter. Super fast, super strong. He has regen. He could do that crazy thing where he splits himself into, like, mini bats, and they can suck blood out of people and add to his own power. I really liked Pure Blood in this chapter. And I also like how this fight between him and Zombie Man was much different from the other fights that we see, simply because they have like an audience this time around. And that's something we haven't really seen before. Like an audience of monsters watching just two powerful guys go at it. This also gives them the ability to narrate and give us exposition so that, the characters themselves don't necessarily have to do it. We can just watch them fight. And I just really like this aspect because the monsters themselves are also funny, because they're fodder guys, so they're somewhat comical. But, they're also laughing, cracking jokes throughout the fight. And we also have that one awesome moment when Pure Blood gets shot through the stomach and then that fat monster's like laughing at him and he just takes him and rips him in half. Oh, that was such a great moment. But as for the fight itself, it did an excellent job of showcasing what Zombie Man is capable of, because he has like this great arsenal, but also we're seeing like the inner workings of it. Like the Desert Eagles that he has, or the modified Desert Eagles, they can come out of his sleeves with those mechanisms that connect to them. Very cool. You know, we've seen this before in, you know, other series and whatnot. So this isn't anything really new, but it is still cool that Zombie Man has it. We're also seeing that he has like different clips. Like he has the standard bullets, and we can assume that these bullets are way more powerful than like what a regular Desert Eagle is capable of, because they're blowing apart what we can assume in like tiger level monsters. But then he also has the crazy clips that actually have like the red lines on them. And I think this is the first time that we are seeing something within the One Punch Man chapters themselves colored. I mean, as far as I know, we haven't seen anything colored before, you know, outside of the cover pages and whatnot. So this was very interesting, very cool. And, you know, thank you, Kanye, very cool. But the blast that he shoots from these things, it goes straight up Kamehameha style, which is cool because, you know, I was expecting like Zombie Man needs something other than just guns and bladed weapons. He needs something like just to give him that extra oomph, and this was it. Now, unfortunately, you know, it doesn't really do much to Pure Blood, but it is paying homage to the original webcomic here, because we do see that in the original Pure Blood straight up grabs Zombie Man's original bullets, just like he does in this chapter, but, you know, taking it to the next level where he's grabbing these, you know, huge, powerful bullets. But he is pushed back several feet from this. So, you know, they are super powerful, and they do blow like a straight up hole through him. Like I mentioned earlier when that fat monster's laughing at him. But also, the impact from these bullets are so powerful that they are just like breaking Zombie Man's arms. Like, it's crazy. The amount of force that these things have, and like the condition that they leave Zombie Man in. Like, his arms are like broken in like it's like 4 different places. Oh, and I also forgot that the monsters want Pure Blood to die, essentially. Like, they're like, look, Zombie Man, we'll just go in there and kill that guy. We're not even going to attack you. We hate that dude. And they hate him because Pure Blood, you know, he sees himself above all of these other monsters, and he straight up sucks them dry, even though he is told not to. Like, this is established in chapter 89, when we're like really first getting a good glimpse at Pure Blood. You know, he is introduced earlier, like in the somewhere around in the 50 chapters when we see him invade one of the cities. But in chapter 89, we're getting a good introduction to him, where he's like, he already established that he comes from like a real lineage of monsters. So apparently vampires exist in this world. I guess they're just a part of the inherent monster mutation that is an aspect of, you know, this universe. But that's pretty cool, because they were always setting it up there that, you know, nobody really likes Pure Blood. And Pure Blood himself is only in the Monster Association in order to get the S-Class heroes out of the way. I mean, even himself states that he wants to take down Orochi, which is kind of like a recurring thing with these weaker monsters, as well as like the others, the big executives that we've seen, like Black Ass. But we're also seeing how far Zombie Man's regeneration can go, and this is a big question I had going into this chapter, because I was like, okay, so if you blow his head off, you know, if you destroy his brain, can he come back from that? Because we know that zombies in general, this is kind of like their crux. But with Zombie Man, nope, you blow his head off, he's still going to come back. Well, you know, his head wasn't completely blown off, but his brain was splattered all over the place. So I'm not really sure what it takes to kill Zombie Man at this point. I think one said in an interview that if you turn him to mincemeat, he can't come back from that. But I can't find a source on this anymore. But I'm pretty sure he did say that. I mean, there has to be a limit to his regeneration. I don't think he's like Boo, where if you just reduce him to like little bits of himself, he can still come back from that. I don't think it goes that far. But regardless, it still is a pretty damn impressive ability. But, you know, I don't think it's quite up there with like Meteoric Burst Boros. We're also getting a further glimpse into Zombie Man's character, like some of his insecurities, I suppose, because after his head does regenerate from Pure Blood throwing the bullets back at him, Pure Blood's like, oh, you're like some kind of phony monster, or are you just a phony human? And then Zombie Man just straight up gets pissed at this. And this makes sense because earlier, I think in chapter 93 or chapter 94, Amai Mask straight up accuses Zombie Man of being a monster then, and that takes him off too. And if we're going by Dr. Genus's definition of what a monster is, it kind of applies to Zombie Man. I mean, he is a result of experimentation. He was labeled as test subject number 66 in the Immortality Project from Dr. Genus in the House of Evolution. You know, this is Zombie Man's origin. This is how he's able to regenerate like this. But he was also like the only test subject that was able to survive this experimentation. So, you know, he is inherently like a strong-willed person, or just a strong person in general. And speaking of just strength, I didn't know how strong he was physically coming into this chapter. I remember one saying that there's like a quote-unquote rumor that he is the physically weakest of the S-Class, and that still might be true. But we see that, you know, at the end of this chapter, he's able to bend the steel bars around the handles of the door, so he's not weak. You know, he definitely has the strength of maybe an A-Class hero, you know, just going by what the Okami Mask says in the bonus chapter numbers. So, you know, his strength is definitely maybe above a B-Class hero. I don't necessarily know if a B-Class hero could bend steel. Maybe they could, but I'm just going to give baseline strength for Zombie Man like a low A-Class, mid A-Class, somewhere around there. So he's not a weakling or anything. And now let's talk about his regen, because like that clip from one of the previous videos I made that I shoehorned in the beginning of the video, I kind of suspected that they were going to buff his regen ability. Because in the webcomic, it's not this outrageous. Because what we're seeing in here, it's like coming back within moments. But I think this is like critical. You know, he really needs this to make him just as powerful as the other S-Class heroes and not make him too weak compared to the other feats that we have seen. And I think it's fitting. This doesn't necessarily make him overpowered or anything, because, you know, he's not super strong like the other ones. Like, we've already established that he has, you know, good strength. But it's his main regen and just straight up surviving death that is making Zombie Man, you know, a formidable S-Class hero. I mean, his regen is so fast that one of Pureblood's bats, like, gets stuck in his shoulder. Like, it doesn't even have time to escape it because it just gets sucked up into his shoulder. And we're also finding out that his blood tastes terrible. I mean, it's so bad that it actually, Pureblood says it's almost impossible to swallow. So I assume this has something to do with the Immortality Project. Maybe this is how he's able to survive death and regenerate and whatnot. Maybe his blood has changed somehow. You know, who knows? Maybe we'll get into that later. So now let's talk about the end of this fight, because this was just epic. You know, it's showing us what Zombie Man is really all about, because he's like, are you ready for a battle of attrition, bro? Because, you know, this is Zombie Man's fighting style. He just keeps fighting you, keeps coming back until the job is done. It doesn't really matter how strong you are. He's just going to keep coming back and whittling away at you. And this is actually how Zombie Man became famous, because in the data book, it says that he became famous from fighting a monster for like 140 hours. So this makes sense, because it only took him 30 minutes to take care of Pureblood, who is, you know, a very powerful demon monster. And I just like how Pureblood is just totally, his will is just broken at the end of this fight. He's like, you should have been dead a long time ago. And Zombie Man's like, yeah, you're right. You know, you killed me like 200 times, bro. But, you know, all it really takes is one time for me to kill you. And this is just awesome. And this is further showing us that, yeah, it's, you know, it kind of makes sense that he defeated Carnage Mode Carnage Kabuto. You know, just extrapolate his 30-minute fight to like a week, I guess, and then extrapolate Pureblood being a high demon to like a mid to high dragon in Carnage Kabuto. But regardless, Zombie Man's still gonna get the job done against you. So now let's talk about what is probably the most epic part of this chapter, and it's when Zombie Man is, you know, he's finally taking care of Pureblood and he's walking over to the door, and the founder monster is like, you think we're gonna let you leave? No, you gotta go against all of us too, bro. And Zombie Man's like, what? I'm not leaving. I'm just making sure you guys can't escape. Man, I love this moment so much. Just one is such a genius when it comes to just cool ass moments like this. I just love it so much. And I'm sure this moment probably reminds you guys of that scene from the Watchmen movie when Rorschach is in jail and he's like, you think I'm locked in here with you? No, you're locked in here with me. And yes, this is totally like that. I love that movie so much. One of my favorite movies. Kind of funny that Zack Snyder made it, but that's that's a topic for a whole nother time. But God, man, I love this scene so much. And we do see that he eventually takes care of them. He is pretty messed up from it because, you know, he's taking on many monsters, and they actually have some kind of a strategy going into the fight with him. He's like, we're just going to hold you on the ground and attack you nonstop, and you won't be able to regenerate. But apparently that wasn't enough. You know, Zombie Man did take care of it in the end, and he looks very much like a zombie coming out of this door. But man, I love this scene so much. This is definitely one of the more violent scenes, just one of the more violent chapters in general. And I'm really curious how they're going to handle this in the anime when we see it in 6 years. So now let's get into the ending, and we're finding out that Child Emperor is relaying his info to the other S-Class heroes. Well, we don't know if all of them are getting this, but we do see that Zombie Man is finding out that Child Emperor did in fact secure Waganma, and he is heading to the surface. But he wants everyone to continue as what they're doing, but don't go too deep, because apparently there's more powerful monsters out there. You know, he's referring to, of course, Phoenix Man, since the whole thing with him fighting against Phoenix Man was that he underestimated him. He didn't think that, you know, guys like him were going to be so powerful. So he's just warning everyone that, hey guys, there's dragons down there. You know, I'm sure you're having fun taking care of these demons, but watch out, because there's some freaking powerful dragons out there too. And then we just get this epic line where Zombie Man's like, all right, it's all healed. Time to go on another rampage. Oh man, just what a perfect ending to a perfect chapter. So that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Let me know what you thought about this chapter. I really hope you loved this one because, like I said, this is one of my favorite chapters already. Let me know what you think about Zombie Man. Let me know what you think about his abilities. How far can it go? Who can he take down outside of demons? Do you think his feat against Carnage Kabuto is accurate in reality? But other than that, like the video if you liked it. I also have a Patreon. It starts at $2 and it gives you access to a Q&A. And if you haven't, please subscribe as well. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.